A husband who will laugh at a stranger's joke on the street but sighs when his wife tells the same kind of joke at dinner. A daughter who replies instantly to a coworker's message but leaves her mother's good morning on read for 6 hours. A friend who gives his best energy, his patience, his full attention to people who barely matter, and gives his family the leftovers of himself. We save our kindness for strangers. And we save our silence for the people who would do anything for us. Nobody plans this. Nobody wakes up and decides, today I will ignore the person I love most. And yet it happens every day in millions of homes in the smallest, quietest ways. A glance not returned. A story cut short. A hand that used to be held, now scrolling a phone instead. If you've ever wondered why the people closest to you sometimes feel the farthest away, or why you yourself go quiet around the very people who matter most, stay with me. Because what you're about to learn isn't really about neglect. It's about a psychological trap almost every human being falls into. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here is the uncomfortable truth. The brain is not built to reward familiarity. It's built to reward novelty. Think about the last time you met someone new, a promising coworker, a person on a first date, someone you were trying to impress. You were present, alert. Every word out of their mouth felt important. You laughed a little louder. You listened a little closer. Now think about your partner sitting across the table last night, or your mother telling you the same story about her childhood for the 100th time, or your childhood best friend texting you just to say hello. Somewhere along the way, the volume got turned down. Not because you stopped loving them, but because your brain quietly decided they were known, solved, safe, and safe. To the brain often means unimportant enough to stop paying attention to. This is the paradox that breaks hearts all over the world. The people we are most secure with are often the people we take most for granted, precisely because they make us feel secure. Let's slow down and actually look at what's happening inside you. Psychologists call this phenomenon hedonic adaptation, the brain's tendency to get used to things good or bad until they stop producing an emotional charge. Researchers Brickman and Campbell first studied this in the 1970s, showing that lottery winners eventually return to their old baseline happiness, and that people who suffered devastating losses also eventually adapted back toward normal. Our emotional system, it turns out, is built for change detection, not for appreciating what stays the same applied to relationships. This means something quietly devastating. The more consistent someone is in loving you, the less your brain registers their presence as remarkable. Consistency, ironically, can make devotion invisible. Now add another layer, one from marriage researcher Dr. John Gottman, who spent decades observing thousands of couples in his love lab. Gottman discovered that partners constantly make small, quiet requests for connection, what he called bids. A sigh. A comment about the weather. A look at this while scrolling on the phone. Gottman found that couples who stayed together turned toward these bids about 86% of the time. Couples who eventually divorced turned toward them only 33% of the time. Not because of big betrayals, but because of thousands of tiny, unanswered moments of, hey, notice me. And here's the final piece. Your ability to be warm, patient, and attentive is not infinite. Psychologist Roy Baumeister's research on what he called ego depletion showed that self-control operates like a muscle. It tires with use. You spend your politeness, your patience, your best listening face on your boss, your clients, your acquaintances all day long. By the time you get home, the tank is empty. And the people who love you unconditionally are the ones who get whatever is left. Because, tragically, they're the only ones who won't fire you, break up with you, or unfriend you for running on empty. That's not evil. That's exhaustion wearing the mask of indifference. Picture a woman named Elena. At work, she is endlessly composed. She nods, she listens. She remembers her coworkers' birthdays. She comes home and her 12-year-old son says, "Mom, watch this." And she says, "In a minute," while checking her email. The minute never comes. The moment closes like a small door, one of thousands that will close that year. Picture two old friends, Alex and Marcus. In their 20s, they talked for hours. Now, 10 years later, they text, "We should catch up every few months," and never do, while Alex meets a new work contact for coffee within a week of connecting on LinkedIn. The friendship that shaped him gets postponed indefinitely. The stranger gets a calendar invite. Picture a father who spent his whole life providing, working long hours, sacrificing sleep, but rarely looked his children in the eye during dinner. Not because he didn't love them, because providing had become his language of love, and presence had quietly been replaced by productivity. Picture a couple, married 11 years. He remembers vividly how he used to open the car door for her. Now they drive in silence, phones in hand, and neither one notices the silence anymore. Because silence, repeated enough times, stops feeling like a warning sign and starts feeling like home. Every one of these stories is different, but underneath they all whisper the same sentence. I thought they already knew. Sign 1. The novelty bias you. Give strangers your full presence and give the people closest to you distracted half attention. The brain's dopamine system is wired to respond to unpredictability. New people are uncertain, so the brain pays closer attention, an ancient survival mechanism for evaluating whether someone is friend or threat. Hedonic adaptation research shows that repeated, predictable stimuli, including people, produce weaker and weaker emotional responses over time, even when nothing about how much we care has changed. Think of Elena, the mother who listens intently to a colleague's weekend story but half listens to her own son. The child, the partner, the parent slowly learns an unspoken lesson: I am not interesting enough to be looked at. That belief, once planted, doesn't easily leave. Sign 2. Missed bids for connection, small attempts at closeness, a comment, a joke, a look at this, go unanswered. These bids are often quiet and easy to miss, especially when distracted, tired, or on a phone. Missing one bid means almost nothing. Missing thousands over years rewires how safe a person feels asking for anything at all. Gottman's research found the difference between thriving and failing. Relationships wasn't the presence of conflict. It was the ratio of turning toward these small bids versus turning away from them. A partner says, "You won't believe what happened today," and gets a distracted in return. It happens once, nothing. It happens for the 1,000th time, and the partner simply stops sharing. The relationship doesn't die from an explosion. It dies from a slow, quiet withdrawal of storytelling until two people who share a bed no longer share their days. Sign 3. Emotional leftovers, your warmest. Most patient self shows up for coworkers and acquaintances. Your shortest, most irritable self shows up at home. Self-control is a limited resource. Holding your tongue with a difficult boss, staying composed through a stressful commute, performing kindness for people who could reject you professionally or socially, all of it drains the same tank. Baumeister's ego depletion research demonstrated that after exerting self-control in one domain, a person's capacity to exert it again, even in an unrelated situation, is measurably reduced. A man spends 8 hours managing a difficult client with total professionalism, then snaps at his wife over a dish left in the sink. Not because the dish matters, but because there is nothing left in the tank to manage it gracefully. The people who love us most receive the parts of us we'd never let anyone else see. Not our best selves, but our most depleted ones. Sign 4. Certainty breeds carelessness. You put in effort for relationships that feel uncertain, and stop putting in effort for relationships that feel guaranteed. The reason behind it is, uncertainty keeps the brain alert. If losing someone feels unlikely, the nervous system stops treating the relationship as something requiring maintenance, the same way we don't think to water a plant we assume will always be there. This connects to what researchers call the certainty effect. Humans invest attention proportionally to perceived risk of loss, not to actual value. Think of Alex and Marcus, the childhood friends. The new work contact, uncertain and unproven, gets a calendar invite within a week. The oldest friendship, assumed to be permanent, gets postponed indefinitely until one day it isn't there to postpone anymore. Relationships that feel unbreakable are often the most fragile of all, precisely because no one is tending to them. Sign 5. Silence becomes familiar. A couple, a family or friends who once talked for hours slowly settle into comfortable, unspoken silence and stop noticing it as loss. Just as the eye adjusts to darkness, the heart adjusts to distance. What would once have felt alarming, a quiet car ride, an unanswered question, starts to feel normal, simply because it repeats. This is hedonic adaptation applied to absence rather than presence. The brain normalizes not just what is there, but what is missing. The couple married 11 years, driving in silence, each on their own phone, neither one registering the quiet as a warning anymore. The most dangerous kind of disconnection isn't the loud argument. It's the silence that no longer feels like a problem. Notice something about every single sign. None of it is malice. None of it is a lack of love. It is a nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do, conserving energy, chasing novelty, adapting to whatever repeats. The tragedy is that the people who deserve our full attention the most are often the ones our biology has quietly filed under already secure, no action required. If you feel a small ache reading this, thinking of a parent you haven't really looked at in months, a partner whose stories you've stopped finishing, a friend you keep meaning to call, that ache is not guilt for guilt's sake. It's recognition. It's your own heart, gently tapping you on the shoulder saying, you still have time. Here is what almost no one tells you. Ignoring the people we love is not proof that we love them less. It's proof that our attention system has a design flaw, one shared by every human being who has ever lived. This isn't a character defect. It's a universal blind spot. And once you know a blind spot exists, you can finally start checking your mirrors. Psychology doesn't ask you to manufacture more love. The love was never missing. What's missing is attention, the willingness to keep noticing what you've already been given, instead of waiting for it to disappear before you finally see its worth. The people who feel loved longest are not loved by people who feel the most. They're loved by people who keep choosing to look up. Practice bid awareness. For 1 week, simply notice, without judging yourself, every small attempt someone makes to connect with you. A comment, a glance, a listen to this. You don't have to act perfectly. Just notice the bid exists. Awareness alone begins to rewire the habit of missing it. Give your first tired hour to strangers, not your family. Since self-control is a depleting resource, protect a small window of your best energy for the people who matter most. Even 5 minutes of full presence when you first walk through the door, before exhaustion takes over completely. Reintroduce novelty on purpose. Since the brain craves change, deliberately create new shared experiences with people you love. A new route on a walk. An unfamiliar question at dinner. What's something you believed as a kid that you don't believe anymore? Novelty reawakens attention that routine has dulled. Say the thing you assume they already know, because certainty breeds carelessness. Interrupt it directly. Tell the people you love, out loud, what you appreciate about them, not because they don't know, but because unspoken appreciation quietly evaporates over time if it isn't renewed. Treat silence as data, not comfort. If a relationship has gone quiet, don't assume quiet means peace. Ask a real question. Are we okay? I feel like we've drifted. Have you felt that too? Silence left unexamined tends to widen. Silence gently interrupted tends to heal. Maybe you've been treating the people who love you like sunlight, always there, so you stopped looking up at it. But sunlight isn't guaranteed. It simply hasn't run out yet. Somewhere tonight, someone you love is sitting a few feet away from you, quietly hoping you'll ask one more question, tell one more story. Hold on a little longer before reaching for your phone. They are not asking for grand gestures. They are asking to be seen the way you once saw them back when they were new. Back when every word out of their mouth felt like something worth staying for. The most heartbreaking love story isn't the one that ends in heartbreak. It's the one where two people who loved each other deeply simply stopped looking. Not because the love left, but because they assumed it would always be there to come back to. It will not always be there. But right now, today, it still is. So look up. The person you've been taking for granted is still sitting right in front of you, waiting quietly to be noticed again. If this video made you think of someone specific, a name, a face, a person you've quietly stopped looking at the way you used to, tell us who they are in the comments. Not their whole story, just their name. Let this be the moment you remember them out loud. If this reached something true in you, share it with the one person you've been meaning to call. And if you want more videos that help you see yourself and the people you love a little more clearly, subscribe. Because the next video might be the reminder that brings you back to someone who's been waiting for you all along. They're still there. Go look up.